on activity. Okay, so before we get into the course itself, it's always good to just do a quick system check to all the participants to make sure that everything is working well. So make sure that Zoom or WebEx, whichever technology we're using, is okay, that the audio is okay, and that the camera is okay. We're not using cameras for this session, but it is nice to sometimes use the cameras so we can get feedback on what is working and get individual feedback from facial expressions and the like. I'm also very keen that the chat channel is working, so if anybody wants to enter a question while I'm talking, feel free to do so in the chat. So I'll just post something into the chat channel to make sure that is working. We will also be using a collaboration space called Miro, which is a whiteboard tool. And as part of the prerequisites, I normally send out a link to the board with some brief instructions on how to get started. So hopefully everybody will be okay using the collaboration space. So if everybody's okay with the technology, we shall begin. So first thing to do is to introduce ourselves. I'm the trainer, so I'd like to get to know the participants. And it's also our first chance to use the collaboration space. So what I'd like you to do is find a space on the whiteboard and using a on-screen pencil, just say hello and draw a picture of yourself and write your name, just so I know who you are and what you look like. And it's also a way of breaking the ice and getting to know each other. Okay. Second task after that is there is another section where I'd like you to grab a post-it note and also just describe what your job role is. Okay, so not your job title, just tell me what you do day to day. And this will just help me signpost the training today, just to know what areas to focus on, what areas to avoid. I'd also like you to use this format to fill in a overview of what you'd like to learn today. So I'm sure you've all got some questions, topics that you'd like to cover. So just let me know in this format, a user story format, what it is you would like to learn and why you would like to learn it. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll just share a screen with you. Oh, just 1 second, let me find the right screen. I will stop sharing and I will then share a different screen. Share. This one here. So what you should see is the Miro whiteboard space. And what we're going to do is use a Kanban board just to manage the modules that we're covering across the course. So I'll move the first one into in progress, which is our introductions. As I said, we're doing the practical DevOps course, and I'd like to use this space on the whiteboard for us all just to say hello. So we'll kick things off. So my name is Craig. Hopefully my writing will come across okay. Using the pencil is quite difficult with a touchpad keyboard mouse. And that's a picture of me. I've got very long hair because we're in lockdown, so I haven't been to get my hair cut for some time. And usually quite happy delivering these trainings. And I'll stick a post-it note in there. And I am the trainer for your course today. So if you could all go ahead and say hello on the screen, that would be great. Normally, Kuldeep, what would happen now is everybody would be in this whiteboard and we'd be collaborating. So since you haven't got access to the whiteboard, I will move back to the presentation slides. Okay, so I will jump back to the slides and we'll move into the course content itself. So thanks for doing the introductions. What we're going to do is make sure we all know what's happening during the training. So I'm the trainer. I'll present the slide material. We're going to do some hands-on practical exercises, which are called lab exercises. So we shall do them. I'll also lead the discussions because I'd like you all as participants to contribute feedback, your experiences, what you understand. So participants, what I'd like you to do is ask questions throughout. Please do contribute whatever experiences you have and feel free to constructively challenge what it is I'm presenting and discussing with you. Please, if you wouldn't mind, limit any digital wandering off. It's very important that you focus on the materials because that will help you when we come to the lab exercises. If there is anything that you disagree with or you think is incorrect, feel free to post that in the chat. If you'd like to as well, please share on Twitter or whatever social media you are using how you feel the course is going, and the things you are learning. So that's the contract between us for the training today. Why are we here then? We're going to learn about what this thing called DevOps is and why it's relevant in today's digital world. Okay. We'll also talk about some of the problems that DevOps as an approach is trying to solve. And this course is a very technical course where we'll be using some technologies. DevOps is about more than technology, and we'll cover that in between the modules in some side conversations. But this course today that you're working with is a technical one. So what will we do? We'll look at things like infrastructure automation and how you can codify your infrastructure as code. We'll also talk about an approach for software development that's known as continuous integration and continuous delivery, and how they help get customer value through software delivery quicker and with more reliability. We'll talk about how you can manage release orchestration, and we'll talk a lot about automation, in particular around test and deployment automation. We will be using the cloud computing as a platform for both doing the exercises and also talking about how the cloud can help with your DevOps approach. We'll also talk about using cloud providers to provide things as a service, so infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and even sometimes software as a service. And we'll also talk at the end of the course around the future for operations and things like monitoring and observability, how traditional ops roles are changing in this DevOps world. Now, just as important to cover in terms of what we are going to cover, it's also very key that I share what we're not going to cover, because we're not going to cover some of these topics. Change management. DevOps does require the organization to change and realign, to break down silos and barriers. We're not going to talk about in this course. I'm not going to teach you about governance and compliance. I just acknowledge that a lot of organizations, certainly big organizations, have a lot of governance and compliance requirements. I'm not going to tell you how to be agile or be a developer or tester or all of those kinds of things, even though these things are very important in the success of DevOps. What I'm going to share with you today is some technical capabilities that allow you to get moving with DevOps and allow you then to look at these other more organizational challenges as and when the time is ready. Okay, so by the end of the course objectives, you will have understood what DevOps is, what CI is, and what continuous delivery is. The practical elements of the course will allow you to assemble a continuous delivery pipeline through which we will push some software. It will be built, deployed, and tested and made available for users. We'll also get hands-on with some version control tools. Everything is becoming codified in a DevOps world, infrastructure and software, so it's very important that more people know how to use version control tools. We'll also talk about public cloud infrastructure, and in particular, the one we're using today is Amazon Web Services. Other cloud providers exist, but we will use AWS today. This tool we're going to give you is called the Devops platform. This will enable you to run this course, and also is a way of implementing DevOps pipelines in your organization. So as well as learning the theory and doing some labs, you can actually use this platform in your own world if you'd like to. And we'll talk about some other ways we can optimize the cloud, things like auto scaling and self-healing, self-recovery, features of cloud that you get when you start to use a cloud platform. So that's the objectives of the 2-day course. I'll signpost you to the rest of the 2 days. So we've got 9 modules in total, mainly 4 modules today. It follows a fairly routine format of doing some slides, having some discussion, and then doing some hands-on labs. Today is very much the software engineering side of things, so talking about tools and continuous delivery. And then tomorrow is much more about the environments themselves. So have you done your prerequisites? I did send out some prereqs before the class. So things like connecting to Miro, you should have all done that. Things like installing Git as a version control client, you should have all done that. If you haven't, now is the time to do it. And we'll take a quick break there. Okay. Since we're not doing breaks, we'll press on. So module 0, it's very important that we understand the history of where DevOps has come from. And this quote, this tweet sums that up quite well. More and more organizations are what are becoming pretty much software-led. That is, their main assets, the main way they do business is through their software and their digital platforms. You think of banks and financial organizations, pretty much everything is digital nowadays. Government departments, how you interact with your local government, that's very much digital by default these days. So much of our life and so many companies who were traditional organizations are moving towards software-led. And DevOps is the word that's used to describe that transformation from being operational to being digital. Okay. There's various definitions around of what DevOps actually is. If you Google the term DevOps, you'll get 101 different answers. So the one I tend to use in this course is this one here from Accenture, who have been a long-time proponent of DevOps. So it talks about the engineering discipline of optimizing both development and operations to realize business goals. And it's key that we focus on business goals. Even though this is a technical course, we use the technology to realize business goals. It's not just about tech for tech's sake. It's very important that we deliver business goals through the application of tools, rapid feedback, stable and responsive, and flexible IT. And that summarizes what we mean by DevOps. Another way to visualize it is to talk about development, who want change, and operations, who want stability. So long we've seen developers pushing lots of changes and operations, being given software that doesn't work in production environments. So operations are loath to do lots of changes because they want stability, but the business is usually pushing the dev teams to do more and more changes. And we need to overcome this wall of confusion. We need to break down the silos between these two competing departments. The way we do that, we'll have scalable and operable software. We'll use consistent and automated processes, and we'll conform with architectural standards. Software engineering will drive those. Operations like this view of the world because it helps them towards low risk, gives them confidence that things are going to be working, and they can focus on making things much more highly available. They shouldn't be dealing with software engineering issues. What they should be doing is providing high availability infrastructure. So we use common tools, common platforms to try and bridge that gap. Everybody starts to share software and infrastructure automation. Environment management is handled across the software delivery lifecycle. We do configuration management to make sure that environments are consistently configured, and we use the same kind of tooling end to end. Okay, so that's the kind of things we need to get right to make DevOps a success. Just like to spend 1 or 2 moments on the history of DevOps. So DevOps at its heart is very much what we call a lean way of doing things. What we want is for software changes to be flowing through to production as continuously and as seamlessly as you like. We want to eliminate all bottlenecks. We want to eliminate waste. That concept has its roots in the Toyota production system, would you believe, going back to the 40s and 50s. Okay. Fast forward a few years and we embrace terms like continuous integration and continuous delivery. Independently of DevOps, those terms were inspired and allow software engineering terms to integrate changes quicker and more frequently and actually deliver them through to production with more stability and regularity. Okay, DevOps, didn't invent those terms; those terms already existed. DevOps as a term actually was originated in 2009, and it was a hashtag, a Twitter hashtag that was shortened. So the term itself was actually accidentally created. Somebody called Patrick Dwyer wanted to organize a conference, and they did it in Ghent in Belgium. And they wanted to bring developers and operations together for a day to talk about this new thing called Agile and how that could help everyone. The original Twitter handle was Developer Operations Days, but back in the early days of Twitter, that was too many characters. So it was cut back to DevOps Days, and eventually the hashtag just became DevOps, and the movement was started. So, a little over 10 years ago, fast forward through time, a lot happened. You can read books like the Phoenix Project, you can look at companies like Amazon, you can look at some of the big enterprise organizations who are embracing this. It's fair to say in just over 10 years, DevOps has gone from being quite a niche thing to something that is ubiquitous and pretty much used everywhere. It's definitely gone into the mainstream. Okay, I'll leave these slides with you as well so you can look back at this information should you like. One other way to picture where DevOps sits in this myriad of different approaches is to look at the typical value stream of taking ideas through to production and getting them released ready for use. Agile development has been around, again, since about 2001 with the advent of the Agile Manifesto. And what we saw there was, great ideas being designed and built, but they couldn't get them into production. CI and CD as concepts came along, great engineering tools. The mix of Agile plus CI and CD allows you to get changes from the business into test environments. what we're starting to see with DevOps is an extension of that into real production. And what we want to do is just make it really easy through this mixture of approaches to take what the business wants, those ideas, and get them into the hands of users by getting them running in a production environment. Okay, we can look at that in a lean way as well. So rather than doing big bang, large scale changes, we should be embracing concepts from the lean startup and the lean enterprise and looking to do smaller, more continuous flow of changes. And once those changes are there, we should also look at concepts like site reliability engineering to make sure that we are enshrining stability in everything we do. So that sort of summarizes the spectrum across which DevOps sits. And as we go through this 2-day course, you'll be using various tools, and we'll talk about all of these topics in more detail. So, course reminder, I've introduced there some core concepts. What we're going to do in the next module is move to the cloud. But before we do that, what I'd like to do is take some questions. Okay, since we're not doing this course for real, I'll move on. What we do as part of this class is create a lab environment. So let me talk about the lab so you can understand what it's about. We're going to be using the cloud for this. It's a great way of spinning up some DevOps tools and seeing how they all fit together. Okay, we'll use a thing called CloudFormation, which is part of Amazon Web Service. And basically what we'll spin up in the cloud is an environment like this. Each participant of the course will have their own environment. It will involve a virtual machine running in a cloud environment. And on there, we'll have a proxy server for routing some web traffic using a public IP address. We'll have some tools that we'll be using through the course, tools that are useful for building software, deploying software, testing software. We'll run tools for containerization and for monitoring and a whole range of other activities that we'll do through the 2 days. And we'll use those tools on a basic Java test environment. What we'll do is we'll actually build a very basic Java application. So we'll use Nginx as the reverse proxy to access the tooling stack. Tools like Jenkins, SonarQube, Sensu, Nexus, the Elk stack for monitoring and Logstash management, they will all be installed on our tooling server. These are all virtual servers running in the cloud, remember? What we'll do is we'll use those tools to build a Java application which is running on Apache Tomcat. So that's what we're going to be building in the cloud. I'll give you some time now to set that up, and I will send out the instructions for doing that. So please do the lab. Okay. At this point here, I will give you a quick flavor of how the lab session runs. So what we do, let me just share my screen again with you, is we use a thing called CloudFormation, which is part of Amazon. And we will, using material that I supplied to the participants, they effectively create their own tooling stack. The way they do it is they use a sample template from what I will send them, and they will upload that template. Okay, and they would then use this thing here that I've sent them to create a stack. You have to give it a name, and you have to give it some credentials, usernames, password, that kind of thing. And what Amazon will then do is spin up some servers, spin up some network infrastructure, and create an environment for you. Okay, I wasn't going to go through that in full detail here. So what I would do is I'll just share with you what it actually creates. So what you're seeing here is the Nginx entry point into the DevOps tools. And what you get installed, every participant gets a version of this, all running in the cloud. It's a way of looking at tools like Jenkins, which we use for the software engineering side of things, to create a pipeline for building and deploying software. So effectively, we'll use this tooling stack to build and deploy and to show what a DevOps pipeline looks like. So that's what Jenkins looks like. There are other tools in there like Kibana for Logstash management, like Selenium for doing automated testing, like SonarQube for doing code analysis, Gerrit for managing the code. These are all tools that we'll be using as we go through the 2-day course. And with that, I will stop sharing the screen, let you have a break, and then we'll move on to module 2. And actually, Kuldeep, that's pretty much all I was going to cover for the demo today. Do you have any questions?